Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Construct Innovate webinar series on digital construction technologies. My name is Jamie Goggins, and I'm co-director of Construct Innovate, which is Ireland's National Research Centre for Construction Technology and Innovation. This is a six-part webinar series. In there, this week, we're going to concentrate on digital project delivery and cloud-based platforms. We've got four fantastic speakers with lots of experience in this area, so really looking forward to the four presentations. First up, we're going to have Ralph Montague, who's Director of ARCDOX, and he's going to talk about digital transactions in delivering construction projects. Then Dan O'Gorman, who's an engagement consultant with GS1 Ireland, and he's going to talk about effective digitalisation within the AEC and facility management sectors. Then Steen Sunesen, who's Managing Director of buildingSMART Norge, and he's going to talk about BIM done right using open BIM harmony. And then Phillip Rosendahl, who's BIM manager from Ramboll, and he's going to talk about, or he's going to give us, show us digital project delivery in action through case studies. So we'll have our four presenters first, and then we'll follow by a Q&A session at the very end. So if you have any questions for any of our speakers, please do post them in the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen during the presentations. And as I said, we'll deal with all those questions at the very end. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to our first presenter being Ralph Montague, who's Director of ARCDOX, who's got lots and lots of experience in this, is a pioneer around BIM and digital project delivery within Ireland. So over to you, Ralph.
Very good. Thanks. Can I share my slides? Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Is that working?
Yeah.
Very good. So thanks, Jamie and Magdalena, for inviting me to talk to this subject. It's something I'm really interested in. I'm going to start by posing the question that nobody wants to ask. Every software vendor would like you to believe that their product is the CDE, and that that one system can solve everything. But the reality in our sector is there's too many participants and there's too many phases of projects over the life cycle to be handled by one system. And so the reality is that the CDE isn't really a system, but it's a process. And even if you look at the ISO 19650 standard and talks about the single source of truth, it's not describing one system. It's just describing an ecosystem or system of systems. And so when we talk about digital project delivery and cloud systems, I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind that we're operating in a sector that's very fragmented and very transactional. So it's very contract based. Lots of parties that are participating in projects, delivering small elements of work to the greater whole. And in that, there's lots of transactions. Let's say transactions in information, but also transactions in contractual transactions. And I suppose amongst all that, we have to, as information managers, we're trying to get to truthful information as opposed to corrupt information. And the way I define this is as shown on the screen. I won't read through all those things, but mostly what we're dealing with in the AC sector is what I would call corrupt information because it's missing, it's incomplete, it's late, etc. So, I mean, the ISO 19650 process is trying to change that, and so my sort of discussion today is about keeping accounts. So for forever, as long as we can remember, business has had ledgers of accounts, and the purpose of accounts was to have a record of what happened, whether it's trading in services, time, money, etc., and to have traceability, to go back at the end of the year and audit the process, and if something goes wrong, to go back in the books, if you like, and find out what went wrong. But of course, keeping accounts is a very administrative, heavy task, and involves a lot of checking and cross-checking, and then it also opens up um, opportunities for people to manipulate the accounts or creative accounting, you might say. And that's what we're dealing with a lot in the construction sector is a corruption of the transactions. And I want to introduce this concept of distributed ledgers because when you keep a book of accounts, if you have two books, then there's a 50% chance that one of them is incorrect or out of date or whatever. If you have three books, that actually reduces when you start reconciling the accounts, but it's more difficult to reconcile three books against two books. But if you have 100 distributed ledgers, the possibility that you can corrupt one version of it actually reduces significantly. Um, so and that's the core idea of distributed ledgers is that you record a transaction on a network of ledgers, and that means once it's distributed, um, if you try and change something in one copy, it will immediately be flagged as corrupt. So distributed ledgers come in many forms. Most people may have heard of blockchain. There's other types of distributed ledgers, but it's basically in a simple format. It's a code of information that's saved on a public chain of and linked together. So there's always an audit trail of transactions, and nobody has singular access to that, so nobody can tamper with that audit trail. For us in information management, it can record really important things like who produced or shared information, when, what, why, etc. And I think the ISO 19650 standard really fits this idea well because we have a defined process. So there's a defined process for information to get from work in progress to published and finally archived in the record. We have particular roles that can be recorded against that, and so with distributed ledger technology, we're adding two additional things. We can add encryption keys, which means we can control the access to data on public on cloud infrastructure, and we can also create a digital fingerprint or hash of information. So it really suits this process. Once we start doing this, we can start leveraging technology and in particular smart contracts. So smart contracts are really just pieces of code that execute if certain conditions are met. So it's kind of if this happens, then that happens. So you could even see this right down to getting paid for your service. So if you upload your floor plan, you can get paid for the floor plan. Yeah, and that can be automated. And particularly with our process identified in ISO 19650, we can define the task that has to be done in the master information delivery plan. We can assign that task to somebody. We can monitor a computer can monitor the CDE to see when that piece of information goes to work in progress, shared or published. So it can track the approval process automatically. And once it's been approved and accepted, that could initiate a payment transaction. So it's a potential to um, really create huge efficiencies, not slight efficiencies, user efficiencies in the way we contract, and it can potentially change the contracting model. So at the moment we have a very centralized hierarchy model, and with layers of management uh, till you get down to the bottom to the people who actually do the work. What digital ledger technologies can enable is a more decentralized way of doing business or contracting. So I suppose that's DAOs. I won't go into that, but I mean that's really what's the DLT can enable for us. Added to that, we have obviously everybody's talking about AI and artificial intelligence and the enormous processing power of AI, but anyone who's used AI to date will know that AI often gets things wrong, and it is highly dependent on the quality of data. So that comes back to my first slide. So if you don't have quality data or truthful data, you can have AI, but all it's going to do is make you very efficient at being wrong. What you want is to have some trustworthiness of the data and an audit trail and traceability of data before you put AI on it, and that's where distributed ledger technology can help. So it's fantastic that we have Steen here today from buildingSMART, because this is all going to depend on standards, standards of information, but not one standard, because we have the industry already has many standards at different levels of the abstraction of data. What we need to do is connect those from top to bottom, so we can have IFC and standards for the objects and the entities at the lower level, but at the end of the day we have to report financial and ESG reporting, and so we have to make those connections from the micro to the macro. And we have Dan, who's also going to be talking about digital product passports and QR codes, which is fantastic, that you can just scan a product and have its information, but that information has to flow up the chain to eventually become an ESG report for an organization across all their portfolio. So it's not going to be one set of standards. It's really going to be a connected series of standards. Now, this is a very challenging subject to talk about in 10 minutes. And when most people listen to this, the first instinct is to run away and avoid this and go back to what you know. So just buy one platform and hopefully that will solve your problems. But actually, it's not going to solve your problems. So what the industry needs is people who are willing to face this complexity and deal with these problems. And I call those people heroes, because they're the ones that are facing the dragon when everybody else is running away and hiding behind the tree. So what this means is we have to shift the way we procure things. So at the moment, we buy buildings first, and then at the end, we ask for the information. I know we ask for some information on the way, but we often get that late, and there's usually a mad panic, the day before handover to get the information in order. The shift we have to buy information first and build the buildings later. And the reason is because the most expensive and most disruptive and most unsafe place to make any changes in the information is on site. You really want to make all those decisions and changes before you get to site, so that the execution on site is seamless. And that's a big shift in mindset for us. So as I see it, there's really only three positions you can have in this industry. You're either a hero, somebody who's uh, sort of being part of the solution, trying to tackle these difficult questions, or you're a villain, the type of person who's manipulating the inefficiencies at the moment and corrupting the system, so you're part of the problem, or you're a victim. You're basically suffering from the inefficiencies, and if you don't choose to be one of these, you'll become one of these by default. So I think that's the message I'd like to end with. Choose to be part of the solution to this industry. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks for having this great presentation. I suppose the easiest role is to be the victim or see yourself as a victim. Much harder to become the hero and be the hero. And I suppose that's the message you're saying. Please don't be the victim. Please be the hero, and we need lots of heroes here to move things on in there. So yeah, sure there's loads of questions for Ralph. So please, if you have any questions for Ralph, please put them in the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and we'll come to those at the very end. So our second presenter is Dan O'Gorman, engagement consultant with GS1 Ireland. So he's going to show us how GS1 can be used within the construction sector in terms of product digital passports and building digital passports in there. So over to you, Dan.
Okay, and thanks for that introduction. So I'm going to continue on what Ralph just indicated there in practical terms of what we're trying to do. So first of all, I work for GS1 Ireland, and I'll explain later as we go through the call what that means. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Perfect, thank you. Just checking. So what is it all about? So as Ralph indicated, it's all about information, but that information is not good enough. You have to know the who, the where, the what, the why, and the how. It's the 5 W's and the H. So what do we do in GS1? What we do in GS1 is as follows. The who, we have standards, and Ralph mentioned standards, and everybody talks about standards. We have a GSRN standard. We have a GLN, which is the global location number. We have the WAT standard, which is the G10s and DPPs, digital product passports, and Y, which is the GIAIs, which is global individual asset identifiers. And this is critical in the industries, particularly as we move from a cradle to gates situation that is traditional way of dealing with things to a cradle to cradle. Why do we have to move to cradle to cradle? EU legislation and the need to ensure that the buildings that we build today are operated in an efficient, effective, and above all, carbon neutral basis. And you can only do that if you actually know which assets within that building are leading to your energy usage and are required from a fire compartmentation perspective, i.e. fire doors, which I'll touch during the presentation. The how then is contained in the DPPs, which are coming in 2027 from there on further, and then standard operating procedures, as we know in the industry. So what is GS1? Everybody on this call uses GS1 standards every day. Every time you go to a supermarket, every time you order something from Amazon.ie or any other system, the barcode that's on those products is a GS1 standard. It's global, it's unique, it's interoperable, and this interoperability is critically important in the area of AI. And 2 years ago, GS1 actually opted to actually look at construction because we have been very successful in retail, logistics, healthcare, etc. So construction is the next frontier that we're tackling within GS1. And to do this, we have 15 AEC experts hired across Europe, as you can see here on the map, and China, Australia, and New Zealand. And Canada and the US have their own system, but we talk to those. So what we do in each one of these countries is shared. And I'm in Warsaw today because we have a meeting on Thursday and Friday with these experts to actually look at how we can actually bring the learnings from China, Australia, New Zealand, and across Europe together and deliver a more efficient AEC and FM sector. So what are we doing? So we're globally unique, we're interoperable, and this is critically important because nobody on this call wants to end up in a situation where you're locked into a particular vendor. So we want to combat walled garden approach. Persistent will always be there. We've been around for the last 50 years and we'll be around for the next 100 years because we are owned by the members. And open and neutral. And open is critically important. In the era of AI, we have to share information. And as Ralph mentioned, rubbish in, rubbish out applies to AI because AI, because of its nature, will hallucinate. So what's it all about? When you go to the supermarket, you trust. You put your products in the trolley, you walk up to the checkout, the person scans those products and you pay. Why? Because you trust the system. We have to replicate that level of trust within the construction industry and get away from that very adversarial situation because simply we don't have the resources anymore to throw into solve the problems. We have to be smarter. And what are other industries doing? As you can see here, this guy is standing in the queue. He's got a liter of milk, but he has to wait for all the people in front of him to actually check through their products. So what did the retail industry do? Did they put in more checkouts? No, they didn't. They used technology. They introduced self-service. But on top of that self-service situation, they introduced technology. So a combination all the way across is using this technology where each product now, not alone does it have to be priced, it has to be weighed as well, because when you put that product down on the scale, if it's the wrong weight, it alerts the assistant who comes over and checks. In the case of SuperValu, they've added another dimension. They've put in AI cameras, you can see on the screen. And the AI camera actually checks to see that you've left nothing on the basket on the left-hand side, and it hasn't checked through. So again, a combination of AI and standards actually works. And talking about standards, we can actually bring those to the construction industry by using barcode technology. Similar to what you see in every industry, and it is being introduced gradually within the construction industry. We in GS1 are not a solutions provider. All we're asking is the solution providers like the Dialogs, the Autodesk Construction Cloud, Procore, etc., use the GS1 standard in the QR codes that are used. And this is what I will demonstrate during this presentation, how these standards can be used. buildingSMART International provides standards. GS1, we've been around for 50 years, as I said earlier, we'll be around for the next 100 years. And above all, IGBC are developing standards as well within this country. So all these together, combined with technology, can make a difference. And have we any examples of this? Yes, of course. Back in the 80s, each of the banks introduced ATMs. But if you had an ATM, if you had a bank account with Bank of Ireland, you could only go to a Bank of Ireland ATM. If you had a bank account with AIB, you only go to a BankLink. Then in the 90s, they discovered interoperability. And now you can go to any bank machine and draw cash. And this is the power of interoperability. And the same thing has to apply in the construction industry. No matter what system or product or solution you use, you have to be able to share that information efficiently and effectively in a frictionless way. This does not mean converting to PDFs and reloading PDFs, etc., onto the computer. This is a waste of time, waste of resources, and costs money. In fact, it is a proven fact that administration in construction industry today adds 2.5% to 6% to the cost of delivering projects. 2.5% to 6% is the margin that most contractors make. And we're accepting that within the industry. It has to stop because we don't have the resources to apply. And in comes AI. It's been launched on the 30th of December 2020, or November 2022. And that has made a phenomenal change. So it's all part of the evolution. On the left-hand side is Leonardo da Vinci. As you can see, it's progressed all the way through to BIM models, to using laptops, and now we've arrived at AI. Microsoft 365 Copilot, ChatGPT, and a host of other applications have been developed using large language model capabilities and AI. And AI agents are underway as well. Some people think this is the genie in the bottle, but there's a problem. It has an Achilles heel. Generative AI and LLM solutions, as you can see here, rely on information, and they suffer from the rubbish in, rubbish out syndrome. The problem with AI solutions is the answer you get is very convincing, but it could be totally based on erroneous information. And this is what we have to correct within the industry. So what is the Achilles heel? How does it affect you? It's a risk. Of course it's a risk, because as you can see here, it hallucinates. If there is no validated knowledge source, it hallucinates. What's the consequences of that? Fairly severe. You can see here, this is the fire officer doing an inspection with the architect on the right-hand side. The fire officer says, according to the codes, this should be a 60-minute fire door. The architect says, well, AI told me it should be a 30-minute fire door. Who wins? The fire officer. What's the cost? Massive. If you have to change out 30-minute fire doors to 60-minute fire doors, for anybody in the construction on this call will know this is a massive cost. So what do? We introduce standards. We bring the information forward to the extent that it can be used by AI systems and architects, but we have a single source of truth. And this is what it's all about, developing that single source of truth for use. The consequence of this, as you can see on this video now, the door on the left-hand side, you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, it'll come up now in a second, the timer. In 19 minutes, you can see the door on the left is not approved. This is the consequences. Now, if this was a 60-minute fire door requirement, the door on the left has failed. The door on the right has met the specification. And that specification is not just what the designers comes up with, but it's how it's installed, because the consequences, as you can see on the left-hand side, are severe. In the middle, part of another presentation, I don't have time today, it would be about concrete. We've done a complete end-to-end solution use case on concrete and checking who did what and who got it wrong. And then finally, the world is changing. As you can see here, ISO 9001 2025 version, which is coming in 2026, changes the whole position as far as architects and engineers concerned, because now you have to prove that you are compliant. And again, it's back to information. It's back to what I showed you earlier about using technology combined with standards like buildingSMART International, the ISO standards, and the GS1 standards to streamline and make this whole process frictionless. And why do we want to do that? To avoid the situation on the left-hand side, as I showed earlier. So as you can see here, lifecycle management integration and the golden thread. There's a lot of talk in the UK about the golden thread because of what happened with Grenfell. We have to create our own golden thread in this country and ensure that the information required is on a cradle-to-cradle basis. So here's an example. As everybody in this call knows, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. In the case of fire compartmentation, fire doors are a critical part of that process. So you can see on the top right-hand side, you can see the design specifications. But we advocate the same as what we do in the supermarket. When you walk into a supermarket, the meat that you buy in Dunnes Stores, in Tesco, in SuperValu is traced right back to the cow in the field that had the calf, that grew into a heifer that was slaughtered, and that's the meat. This is track and trace. We're able to achieve the exact same requirement in the construction industry, if only the clients want it. And that is the problem with the industry. As long as clients continue to pay for waste, waste will continue. And this is the fundamental difference between what's happening in other industries versus what's happening in the construction industry, in my opinion. And I am a quantity surveyor, so I know what cost is involved. But what we're trying to achieve in this graph is all in one. We have the information, we know exactly how the fire doors assemblies were manufactured, were put together, processed, they were loaded on the truck and checked and balances. They arrived on site, scanned again, fitted correctly, scanned again, and I'll show you this in a few minutes. And then when the actual building is handed over, all that information is intact. You have the golden thread. And then operational wise, because there's tags on the doors, as you can see with this guy here, you're tracking the whole process all the way through. And then from a recycling perspective, because these doors have a digital product record on them, you can actually reuse these doors with confidence, and the insurance companies would have no objection because there is a golden thread of information all the way through. And this is true process. For those of you now, just to show a bit of interaction, if you want to, you can scan the left-hand side, the QR code up here on the right, on the top of the screen, and on your phone will appear this. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to actually scan that, and you can see this application in practical terms. So I'm now going to show you what you should be seeing on screen. So for those of you who scanned, for those of you who didn't, this is what you will see. And then if I look at the service engineer, or I'll go to the building occupant first. You can see here that if I go and simulate the situation rather than scan it, if you had it for a QR code, you'd scan it. And you can see here you've got the report an issue, and then the door closer, whatever the key area, I could put in my name, DAN, and I put in the number. I'll just, for the purpose of this, and then you get this message coming back. Now, as I said earlier, that has created a record. But what I'm advocating here is the one QR code that's on the door. Each one of these actors, this is the service engineer. I'm going to simulate again. You would normally scan the QR code on the door. They get a totally different experience. So they get this experience, and they get all the information that they require to do the job, as Ralph talked about earlier. So this is the type of solution that GS1 can provide. And this is what we're advocating to the likes of the Autodesk Construction Cloud, to Procore, to Dalox, and other suppliers in the industry. Why not use your existing products? But when they scan, they get, each of the different actors gets a totally different experience suitable to their requirements. This is a major advantage in the industry, which can bring a huge amount of advantages. And then the other aspect of this is, if I can go back out of this, so I can go back here, and this last thing I have to show you, because this is a practical example. This is the bill of materials. And as I said earlier, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So an engineer, and there's some engineers in this call, and a fire officer can actually decide on the specification for a door. And they can ensure that every one of the components, there's 16 actually in a typical fire door assembly solution, they can ensure that each one of those has the appropriate EN standard. But what happens when the contractors have gone, the engineers have gone, and now we're into the operational phase? What we've developed in GS1 is this, where the simple use of the door schedule that is put together at construction phase is actually converted and used throughout the solution. So therefore, when the actual operation guy scans the 1D barcode on the box of the handle, as you can see here, and a billion rows handle, it actually confirms in the system that that barcode, which doesn't even have to be a GS1 barcode, is actually listed in the bill of materials. So this is bringing the information that was put together at design and construction phase all the way through to operational phase, and ensuring that the integrity of that fire door assembly is maintained for the duration of the project. So moving out of this, and you can play with this on your own time, these slides will be presented. The other aspect of this is, again, Ralph mentioned DPPs, digital product passports. What you can see on screen there is a typical digital product password, which is included what I showed you earlier. And you can see here all the information that is required from design to installation, to certification, to inspection, to operation is included in a single source of truth. And that single source of truth, as you can see here, is accessed because it has a global trade identification number. That is the exact same type of number that's on the box of cornflakes that you buy in the supermarket. So it is globally unique, it is interoperable and usable. And this is what I just demonstrated to you about using the scanning and the simulation, which will be in the slide pack as well, so you can try in your own time. So as you can see here, goes X and it goes tick if it's correct and so forth. So this is actually bringing BIM and the I in BIM through to all the way through from design to manufacture, to installation, to commissioning, to operation, to decommissioning, to repurposing. One source of truth carried all the way through. So what do we actually do with this information? As you can see here on the screen, this is a replication of what our friends in Oracle are doing. And again, you can see on the top of the screen, I've mentioned the standards that are used, like buildingSMART International and GS1 standards and ISO standards. And this is Oracle Aconex that's used in major projects, and Oracle Primavera is used in major projects across the globe. And what's the difference here? P6. But with AI, processing has become the easy part. The hard part is actually the information that's required to do the things. And this is again where GS1, combined with DPPs, digital product passports, can actually make a difference. And fundamentally, all this information that's gathered together needs to go somewhere. And where does it go? Just like when you're buying a second-hand car, and this is my second last slide, a vehicle maintenance logbook is maintained. So if you're buying a second-hand car from a private individual, if you're smart, I hope everybody in this call is smart, the first thing they will do is ask for the service history log. Similarly in construction, if we want to really talk about repurposing information, we have to maintain that log, which is called the digital building logbook. And in this case, you can see here that this the sound isn't working. This is, sorry. This is Kevin McLeod. You'll see him in a second. And what he's talking about is a digital product passport. And this video again is available after. So you can see here, he's putting a QR code on every house. And every document that they used in the construction of this house is actually contained within that document accessible. And as I showed you earlier, every one of the people who are using this solution can actually see, as you can see here, everything to do with the house is contained in that document. We've taken this one step further in GS1. So if you're a carpenter, you only see carpentry. If you're an electrician, you only see electrician. If you're the plumber, you only see plumbing information. And you can see on Kevin McLeod's face there is enthusiasm for this. We've taken this, as I said earlier, many steps further. But with that, this is then what a digital product passport looks like. So we're working with a company called EcoWise in the UK with our partners in the UK. As I said earlier, we're a global organization, and our French colleagues are working on this as well as is the Nordics colleagues. And what we're doing here is actually showing how this works. And again, Ralph mentioned about how the need for security, the need for ownership. And as you can see here, digitally signed, digitally signed, digitally signed. So we are in the cusp, and I'll finish with this. We're in the cusp of using the information that we use in design, in manufacturing, in construction, in operation, in a manner that it is useful for generations to come. And we avoid a situation where we have rework, which adds money and cost. We avoid a situation where we're transferring PDFs back and forth, and checkers checking checkers to no avail. What we're really asking from a GS1 perspective is that the construction industry follow what's happening in other sectors. As I said, I'm in Warsaw. My bag arrived because of barcodes on that product. I did self-check-in in Dublin Airport, and it works. And it's all done with barcode technology and standards. And this is what we have to replicate in the construction industry. With that, that's my presentation. So hope this was of interest. Happy to take questions, and thank you very much for the opportunity to present. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dan. That's great. And look at like showing things practically how they work as well. Having, using technologies with standards to streamline processes, make them more efficient, but make that information so accessible and the right level of information available to the right people at the right time. And that's what it's really about. So anyone, any questions for Dan, please put them in the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and we'll deal with those at the end of our 3 presentations. So we're on to our third presenter. We have Steen Sunesen, who's Managing Director of buildingSMART Norway, and he's going to talk to us about open BIM harmony and basically BIM done right using these standards. So over to you, Steen.
Thank you so much. You see my screen and you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the introduction. Also, thanks to Ralph for his kind words earlier. I'm going to present a solution that we have developed between 4 European buildingSMART chapters called Open BIM Harmony. Just background, me, yes, I'm Managing Director of buildingSMART Norway. I'm an architect, also doing convening standardization work both in Norway and in the European standardization body SEN. And what's relevant to this presentation is that earlier position I was convening or being part of a group behind the technical report in Europe, which is a guidance to ISO 9650 Part 2 about how to agree and follow up on information requirements. And I was always also been project manager for Statsbygg. Statsbygg is the Norwegian government's consultant client owner for buildings, and Statsbygg has been a driver for Open BIM for the last over 20 years. And diving straight into the information, one of the information that we required in Statsbygg is the object type name. Object type name is a very seriously important piece of information. It's used in multiple use cases. Just to name a few: cost estimation, LCA analysis, build quantities, and all kinds of linking models to technical documentation and so on. So if we do not get this right, we will not have, we're actually reducing the value of working with digital models. There will be, if not no, at least less downstream use. There will certainly be no machine interpretation, and we can forget about digital twin. In Norway, we have actually standardized the identification, which classification you're using, the syntax, and also the model binding that is actually provided by the IFC standards. So it's pretty easy. But what we saw from the projects the many projects, Statsbygg has like 150 ongoing projects at any time. We saw that they delivered some kind of information, but it was not standardized and it was not using the right attribute or property. And this is a huge problem. So this really made us think and invite the industry to ask, why didn't we get the information that we required? We did it together with some other like-minded public clients for railways and for hospitals. And some of the key findings in a seminar, it's some years back, is that we have been a bit too creative and had too many ideas and also requiring too much information. All information that has to be delivered and quality assured has a cost, and most projects are simply not willing to bear that cost. We also saw or were told that it was fine with all these requirements, but we were specifying the requirements in many different ways across not just clients, but each and every project. We didn't have a standardized way of doing this. So it took a lot of time just to find out what are the requirements, and the way to answer to the requirements in the tendering process were also different. So, and also one thing is that in many cases, the requirements were not part of the agreement, simply because the project managers typically didn't know how to integrate the information requirement into the standard agreement. So that means that clients usually don't have the leverage to follow up on deviations, and often have to actually pay for the appointed party to rectify their own mistakes. A fourth finding was that it's good that we have a lot of standards. BIM is about to be more regulated. That is great, but actually a lot of companies, especially small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, find it difficult to navigate through all these standards. In Norway, many of the standards also in English, that can be a barrier as well. So we had to do something. Just about the same time we did this, the ISO 9650 Part 1 and 2 arrived, were published, and many of these issues were actually could be solved in implementing these. Both here in Ireland, you have the GDA, make the information management plan. In Norway, in Statsbygg, we made the next version of our BIM requirements, also including the ISO 9650. We saw there were many different interpretations and ways to do it, and many felt unsure how to actually apply the ISO standards. So we got together again now in Sen and made this technical report that I spoke about earlier, which is much more hands-on, provides templates and very practical samples and explanations of all the things the steps you need to do, specifically in the tendering process, and specifying requirements in AI, how to fill out the BEP, and how to follow it up in a project. Based on that, it was updated both in Ireland. Now it's not GDA anymore. It was Build Digital that continued the information management plan. In Norway, we just made a new version here. But still, it was not used, at least in Norway, it was not used the way that we, as much as we wanted, and many thought it was still too difficult. There were still too many parts. ISO 9650 was a good framework, but it was not the whole answer. So we need to add something more. And that's why we met again now as an inter-chapter work in buildingSMART to make what we call Open BIM Harmony. And this is something that's published this year. And in Norway, we have already made a national implementation of that. Build Digital has committed to align the information management plan according to the Open BIM Harmony. So it will be. And what Open BIM Harmony is actually taking the basic principles for the ISO standard. I believe many of you already know those. We also use the level of information need, how to specify information requirement. We use the exact same templates as developed in the guidelines. Two very instrumental persons, Robin Moore here from Ireland and David Churchill from UK, also co-author of the ISO standards. were part of this guideline work. So we know that this is a very good interpretation of the ISO standard. We also included very basic BIM practices from something that is today still a Norwegian standard series, NS 8360, but it's in progress to become a European standard as well. And we also added a proposal for actual information requirement, especially for clients who still maybe not that mature and would spend a lot of time to define their own requirements. We made a requirement that would cover a lot of non-complex construct buildings. And simply what we did, we put everything into one solution. This is a plain language, step-by-step guidance, depending if you are an appointing party, client contractor, or if you are appointed party, which of course also can be a contractor or subcontractor, architect, engineer, and so on. It's low threshold to be used by SMEs and also smaller projects. It can also be used for larger projects. And this is the solution that we have branded OpenBIM Harmony. And as you see, we have our marketing team with us here. So just very brief, it's too much to cover for 10 minutes. But very overall, the appointing party, the client or the contractor, whomever ordering the information, has to take responsibility to both establish common data environment, and I fully agree with Ralph that it's not just one solution, it's a system of solutions that has to work together and support the all the BIM users the plant use for information exchange and information management. They also have to specify the information requirement according to level of information need, and it has to be part of the agreement. The lead appointed party shall specify their approach and how to deliver using the BIM execution plan. This is a template. The information exchange information requirement is actually pre-filled in as much as possible with requirements. And the lead appointed party shall also, of course, deliver according to the requirement which is set. When it comes to the information requirements, looking at the alphanumeric information requirement, you see on the left side of the screen, these are the total number of the maximum number of requirements. There are 12 information requirements. It does not apply to every discipline or project states, or not even to each object classes as well. And some of them, as you can see, is specified according to classification, but there will be different ways to do this in different countries. But we have simplified a lot, and that is really the point here, to make it as simple as possible. And using these very universal information requirement, these supports a number of BIM use cases. So OpenBIM Harmony is not really meant to be used off the shelf in a project. It's more like a toolbox for a chapter. As you may remember, I said, buildingSMART Norway, we have already made a implementation of that. So it's actually meant for chapters to assess and make their own versions. There are things that you should adopt and not change. The basic principle I just told you about from the ISO 9650. The document structure, so it will be recognized across clients and projects, and also the information requirement as much as possible. But of course, there will also be things that has to be adapted, language of course, but there will also be national or even on company level classification used for identification, and there can be national standards, regulations and practices, namings and so on, that you need to either add or change, so it becomes relevant for your industry and your industry's needs. So it was published in March this year, so it's very new. This is the team behind it. It was not developed by buildingSMART International. It was an inter-chapter work between these four countries. Portugal, Benelux, Denmark, and Norway. Benelux is a chapter, actually. Yeah, it's 3 countries. Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. So it's more countries, but 4 chapters. And happily, after we see that after we have published it, more chapters have joined, and you see that UK Ireland, through Build Digital in Ireland, has joined this work, and we're really looking forward to it. Today, the number is actually 13 chapters who have committed. One is still on the fence to actually adopt this into a national implementation. This is really interesting for us. So lastly, I would say that the documentation for OpenBIM Harmony, it's pretty self-explanatory, is available using this link. And it will lead you to the European OpenBIM Forum, which is a group of the European chapters. And they have their own webpage, and this is actually the first product made available there. For now, at least in the first version, it's free for use. But of course, the different chapters may develop their own business model in their national implementations. If you want to know more, just reach out either to Robert in Ireland or to me, and I'd be happy to tell you more about this. So that was my pitch. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Steen. And great to hear the OpenBIM Harmony, and that there's so many chapters getting involved, and so many different countries that are getting on board as well. Like, so that, that's obviously.
If I can just add that the EU BIM Task Group, which is the group of public client owners in Europe, they are also interested and have dialogue with them to talk about boosting the implementation. So there's a lot of interest. I think we kind of hit a sweet spot here, or a dry spot. That there's a lot of interest in this. So thanks a lot.
Brilliant, very good. Okay, so without any further delay, I'm going to hand over to our fourth speaker, Phillip Rosendahl, who's BIM manager at Ramboll, and he's going to bring us through some digital project delivery in action, so example projects and different platforms that they use in Ramboll. So over to you, Phillip.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. You're able to see my screen as well?
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah. So yeah, I'm Phillip from Ramboll. Thank you for having me. I work as a BIM manager, and today I'll walk you through some of the software that we use to work with cloud models. Just briefly, I'll go through ACC, make a live demonstration of ACC, and Dialux, which is a site software that we use as cloud-based as well. So yeah, Ramboll. I think most of you know who we are. Clients, consulting firm in 35 countries, and we are placed in Denmark. I'm from Denmark. So yeah, we're working as a BIM manager, mainly working with models. And the tools that I'll show you today is ACC. So ACC is Autodesk Construction Cloud. Mainly, we are working with Revit in our department. So it's a centralized software to collect all of the discipline models that we are using. We can make cloud share models to make sure that all of the different disciplines are combined, and everyone can see live updates with the models that we are using. So within ACC, we can create the federated models with the different discipline models that we are using in a separate project. And also inside ACC, we have the automated clash detection to make sure that we can see clashes in the early stages of the project, and also be able to create issues within ACC to communicate to every different parties who's involved in the project from the early stages. Yeah. So we can inside ACC, we can combine all of the different formats that we have deliverables in throughout the project. So if we have a Revit model, we can live link all of the other Revit models which are being worked on in a project, and we can live update the models to make sure that we can adapt to any changes which are being made inside the model. Yeah. So some of the main modules that we are using inside ACC is the docs is for the documents of the project. So there are different ways we can share project or align access for different parties within the project. So we can share and communicate live between all of the different parties in the project. We have a design collaboration module, which we are using for throughout the design of the project. So we can communicate about clashes or issues within the project, and we can pinpoint in 3D models to show where some issues can be, and there is a history of the communication within the project. And so is also the model coordination, where we can, with this clash detection is being made live, and we can maintain data within the project and see it throughout the design phase to make sure that everything is done as we wish. And then there is a build component that is also included in ACC, which is more when we go to the site. So we are able to control RFIs, submittals, checklist, site inspections, and assets within the project. So I'll just quickly show what we are. I have 2 different projects where I can show. So this is the doc of a project where we have all the different models. So if this was a project where we are working in Revit, we have folders for every different discipline which are in the project. So right now this is a tender project where we have different models. Here we have both Revit and IFC model, which are being updated throughout the project, and other parties in the project are able to link these different models. So here you can see architecture model, and this is being updated weekly in the project, so everyone is able to go in and see the updates in the model and what has been changed. Right now in this project, we don't have the compare function, so I'll just show another project because this is a project that's way far in the process. So in this project, what I've done is I've compared 2 different versions. So I've taken an earlier version of the model and wanted ACC to tell me what has been changed between these 2 model versions, and I can sort this out through what changes do I want to look for. Is it changes in the geometry? Is it changes in the data within the object? I can sort on, is it something that has been changed or something that has been removed or something that has been added to the project? So we can follow the process, and the project leaders or the ones who are not deep inside the Revit modeling or the software can use this directly in the browser. So yeah, that's the document module. We have many different options here by sorting out what we want different parties in the project to know, and we can give some different tasks or put them into different packages to make sure that it's only the specific person that we want to have the information will get it. And we have further modules down here, as I mentioned, where we can coordinate the design throughout the project. For example, this is the model coordination, where we can see clashes through the weekly publishes of the model. So, for example, this is set up between the different models that we have in the project, and I can click and see what's the clash between those 2 models, and then I can assign the issues directly to a person that is responsible for that specific collision. And through this, I can also create a report to say that this and this and this you need to solve by this date. And when they open the report, they can go directly into ACC and see what the specific issue is, both in 3D and what my comments and so on, deadlines and so on would be. And hereby we can also see the history of the different communication between members and reports that follow how it's been solved. And the last one is the build module that I mentioned. So this is more for the site. So here we can create RFIs, or we can see checklists, site reviews and so on. So to follow the process. Yeah. So another software that we're using is ARCDOX. So ARCDOX is more the site. It's more used for when we have delivered a project after design, but it's also based on all of the models that we are delivering, IFCs, Revit files, and other 3D geometry like point clouds and so on that we can deliver in the project. So yeah, the different models that we have within modules that we have within is a location where we have all the 3D models combined. So we are able to see what specific component there is talk about. So we both have a sidewalk function within, or we also have augmented reality. So you are able to, with on-site open models, and go to a specific place and see the 3D model in real time. And also in this, we have like the field, which is where we can make RFIs and requests for stuff that we need on site. There is a box function where all of the documents and so on, which is being used on the project and delivered, is used. And there is a handover module where we make sure that all of the deliverable and assets and so on are done correct. So yeah, the ARCDOX looks like this. So for location, this will be from the models that we have uploaded within the project within Box that we give access for. So right now I've just loaded in the point cloud, and there are different ways that we can look for through the building. We can see, okay, we want to see a specific plan. We want to see a specific plan within 3D, and we can sort out all the kind of different. We want to see a specific model or some specific area that we want to look deeper into. Of course, we can also split up the building and mark up different things that we need to look into. Yeah, and also this is more site related. So I'll just quickly jump to the other project, but yeah, location field is more stuff that we need on site. So as I mentioned, sidewalk, some captures that are done on the site. This design, where throughout the design we are able to mark up and tell all the vendors about stuff that we need from them, or they can use specific 3D models to request some information. Yeah, and Box also just very easy to use because we have all the different modules that we are able to deliver in. So there is a overall file component where we can put on all of the files, and then we can split them into version sets and publish files. So we can arrange who gets the specific information throughout the project, and meeting modules and so on. So we are able to have an overview of all of the history of throughout the project. I think that's mainly it.
Brilliant. Thanks for that. That's great. That to get a run through the practical applications in ACC and ARCDOX or ARCDOX in there. Some real projects and showing how you guys use it in Ramboll. So there's lots of questions here for presenters. I know Ralph has been busy in the background there answering some of those questions. So I'm just conscious of time.